Hey there, I hear this a lot and I get asked as well. Are startup CEOs really difficult to work with? Are they just driven or derisive? Do they gain pleasure from putting down other people and being loud and abrasive towards others? Because if you look at the media portrayal of quote unquote successful entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg, you can see a lot of aspects of their personalities which are negative, which involve quote unquote screwing other people, putting others down, cheating their co founders and partners in order to achieve certain goals, being very loud and insensitive to other people's needs, and being the furthest away from being empathetic. Even I was watching a recent show about Uber's founder. The founder comes across as someone who is extremely self-centered. At least that's what the portrayal is. Even the TV series about WeWork's founder as well, where they come across as a kind of like a deity figure, a cult figure almost, where they expect everyone to follow them blindly and they expect to distort reality to make things happen. And it has been portrayed quite a bit. So from the outside, it does seem like the startup world is filled with these type A hustlers who are trying to bend reality, create something out of nothing, and making everyone convincing everyone to do their bidding. And I have to say that that may be a little further away from what actually happens. The reason that these aspects of these personalities are being portrayed is because it's sexy, it's fun to watch and learn, it's fun to imagine, and it excites you when they see that someone who's acting abnormal in certain situations, but still they achieve certain goals. And people look up to them thinking that that is what is needed, that hustle, grind, selfish culture is what is needed to make things happen, even if that involves hurting people, even if that involves breaking trusts, burning bridges. It is what needs to be done. But I am of a slightly different opinion in that way. I was talking to one of the students of Babson College who was doing research on CEO personality types, especially in the startup space. And one of the questions that he asked was pretty interesting, where what is your personality type? And why is there a perception that working in a startup involves a lot of personal sacrifice? It involves a lot of destroying of one's ego to achieve certain goals. And why does it involve a hire fast and fire faster quote that was made famous by Gary Vee as we go along? I think it's not true. And what is not portrayed in the media, of course, is the rest of the time where the startup founder or the entrepreneur has to be charming. They have to convince other people to follow their vision, and that may be employees, team members, investors, well-wishers, mentors. The whole ecosystem needs to root for them, and that will not happen if they're abrasive and rude and ruthless all the time. Perhaps being a balanced, a more charming personality with a head on the shoulders, taking rational decisions, thinking it through, taking advice from others. That aspect may not be as sexy, may not be as exciting. It may be even termed as normal, and so maybe that's the reason why that aspect of entrepreneurs are not shown outside. Because unless you have people supporting you, no matter how brilliant you are, what a genius you are, and you may have the best ideas in the world, you may have $1 billion to play with, unless you are someone who's able to demand respect and get respect, unless you are able to portray yourself in a way that makes everyone around you feel good about themselves and the work that they're doing, it is highly unlikely that you would succeed. And another question that came up was, how do you build a good startup culture, and what is a good startup culture? Is it hustling day in and day out? Is it working 24/7, sleeping for 2 hours, working over the weekends, sacrificing pay for years and years and years? Is that what startup culture is? Arguably, that kind of mindset has in the past proven results. It has been shown to show results, but I would also agree that it is a personal choice. The culture of a startup cannot be built from laying out a vision statement. It cannot be built from putting up posters of the top 5 goals of the company, culture of the company. And even though it does not, what it does happen realistically, in my opinion, is that the personal beliefs of the startup founder or the founding team is what gets translated throughout the organization. Let me give an example. One of my personal quirks is that I have a sense, or I have a feeling that I need to respond to every email, especially from customers, almost immediately without delay. And that aspect of it, I think, consciously or unconsciously, has been driven into my organization, where initially I used to request everyone respond immediately, and now it has become the norm. And so if somebody does not respond to a customer or investor or any email almost immediately, it is considered to be strange or out of the ordinary. And that's just one example. I know of other founders. For example, there's this other friend of mine who is a strong believer in work life balance. He does not sacrifice in spending time with his family, even if that means missing meetings, even if that means removing or rescheduling tasks that are pretty important. And if a founder or the founding team is like that, it would inevitably be filtered down to the rest of the organization as well, where this kind of behavior, where giving priority to family even when things are not going good, is acceptable. It would undoubtedly be transferred to the rest of the organization, even if the founding team claims that that is not the case. And I think that is where true culture comes in, where a person's insecurities, a person's quirks, a person's thoughts get filtered down, and it eventually becomes the culture of the organization. For example, Jeff Bezos, during the early stage of Amazon, he had a mindset where he was ruthless towards his partners. Earlier, it was book sellers, book vendors. He did not care who helped him get to a certain space. If he felt that what was right for the organization to grow fast, destroy the competition through acquisition or through threats, he was willing to do so, regardless of the fact that all these other vendors have helped had helped Amazon raise a lot of money and reach a stage where they have. And that culture has still prevailed. Even now, Amazon has been quoted as treating their sellers or brand partners or agency partners very poorly, by not helping them out or creating issues for them that seem to be unnecessary. And so that is even when Jeff Bezos has left Amazon's day-to-day operations, that culture, I think, still prevails. And that's how I think culture gets built. You cannot will a company culture into being. I think it's just that at best, as a founder, as a leader, you can try to be a better version of yourself. You can try to educate yourself. You can try to consciously, at least in the beginning, try to make these small changes that can be beneficial to the organization. But eventually what happens is that one's personal feelings, thoughts, and actions speak much much louder than what they hope for things to achieve. And so that's why I think when people work with startup founders, people think that startup founders are very difficult to work with. They're very mean, they're rude, they're abrasive, and it's, in my opinion, just the personality traits of the founder that has been driven because of personal beliefs or the situation or the high pressure situation where they're in, where they're forced to make decisions and forced to make or forced to say things which may seem hurtful to people, because they're under that pressure and their personality type demands that they do that. So that's why I always say that startup is a path of personal growth for the founders and also for the early stage employees, where they learn a lot of things about themselves during the course of working. They know what their limits are. They know if it is possible for them to push their limits, and also if they are able to be a good leader and inspire others to do the same as well. And so that's one of the most beautiful aspects of entrepreneurship. But at the end of the day, I think it all comes to personality types. We are all humans. We have our quirks, we have our thoughts, we have the way that we do things, and that is what translates to the entire organization.